Folks, we are back. Hardpoints, the return. We're going to be talking about CDL, Minnesota event coming up, all the teams. Basically, to start, we're going to walk through what the show is, who each of us are, and get down to what we do best, and that's talk about Call of Duty, bullshitting with the boys. So basically, you know, you guys go ahead, introduce yourself. Joe, start it.
My name's Joe DeLuca, and around the Call of Duty environment, I'm known as Merk.
Big Merk, Big D.
Hey, Big Baby, also known as Big Joey D. Hey, caster, ex-pro player, retired. Now I cast with the big bald man next to me. But
Beautiful.
yeah, I mean, just been around the Call of Duty scene for 10 years now. 2010, Teep. That's when I met you. 10 years
time,
ago.
brother. It's crazy, man. Glenn, go ahead.
Oh God, I got into this world of esports back in the beginning. Like my first MLG event was like 2004, so I've been around for ages. But
God,
Call of Duty, I started commentating back in Black Ops 2. So I've been commentating now for what, 7 years or so. Commentate with that beautifully handsome man Joe. Some have called me the greatest 34-year-old gamer on the planet.
Gotta be
Blackout
close.
World champion, and just all around gifted.
Oh,
did I say my name? My name is Clint Evans. Maven, what up?
What an intro. Crowder, go for it.
And my name is James Crowder. I'm an ex-pro player as well. I've been around the Call of Duty scene for quite some time as well, probably around like 2009, 2010. I retired last year. I'm now the head coach of the Atlanta FaZe franchise. I was the head coach of the 100 Thieves franchise last year, and now I'm here. Yeah.
Love it.
I forgot one thing.
Go ahead.
What?
Also, the esports broadcaster of the year for 2020.
Perfect. You got anything else, Clint?
Not 2020. That's this year. You definitely didn't win it.
Did I say 2020?
You're a mess.
2018.
Unless you're predicting the future, which I'm all for it.
You're a mess. All right, and I'm Tyler Teep. I was a pro for quite a while, Call of Duty World Champion in 2014, went into the analyst desk commentating, coached Optic for 2 years, and now I'm sort of in between. So we'll see what's going to come up for me. But before we get started, you guys can check out our streams, our YouTubes, and everything. Make sure you guys check out my boys. I've known these guys for a long ass time. It's a pleasure to be able to create content like this with them in our specialty. Make sure you guys check out the new BTB stuff coming soon as well. And thanks for stopping by. So basically, the first thing that we want to go into is talk about what CWL was, what the COD Pro scene was like before, as we do transition into CDL, and talk about sort of the things that we thought was really good about CWL, the things that they could have improved on, and maybe things that they could improve on going into CDL.
Well,
so
I think it'd be funny to hear from you three, sort of just to talk about, like, you're all retired players now, sort of talk about what it was like for you when you were competing versus what it has become. Like, it's just got to be insane. It's a lot different than my perspective from a commentary standpoint. Yeah, there's been improvements in the broadcast, but for you guys, like, from rags to riches, from pennies to millions, like, it feels like it's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'll start. What, first year CWL was Black Ops 3, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
That was a different year. I'll touch on Black Ops 3 because after that is when I joined the CWL team, the MLG team, and really got to work on it. So I'll just touch on the first year. I mean, everybody sort of remembers the first player meeting, all of the events, South Carolina.
Ooh.
That was a good one.
Bluetooth issues. I mean, there was a couple of problems that I think really affected the year. But I mean, I think we all sort of agree that Black Ops 3, if you don't throw the Anaheim event in there, if you don't throw Orlando in there,
right,
those extra couple of lands, it had so much potential. It was so much fun. It was a great game. But the online portion stunk, and I think the CWL learned that quickly. How much not fun that is, not only for players but also Clint, on the broadcast side, how it's not fun to deal with that day to day. But we
have such unique perspectives on it now too, because we went from being those players stuck in that sort of mindset, and we've sort of transitioned into the side after it. So we experienced it from a certain perspective, and I feel like the point that we've gotten to now is just so much better. especially from when we played.
Sure.
We were talking the money, we're talking the actual format, we're talking about the amount of LAN game time. Imagine back in our I guess glory days of playing, the amount of LAN time that you actually get to play on nowadays. Like, man, that would have been an absolute blessing. So it's interesting.
Can we rewind real quick, just because I want to kind of have a laugh about that whole thing? Because you were talking about Black Ops 3, like how it was interesting. Because I was working on the other side, obviously. Like, I was a creative producer at ESL. Like, I switched from MLG to ESL. But that was such a nightmare for so many reasons, because ESL got paid so much money by Activision to run the Pro League, right? Like, to run the Pro League. And who had ran all the open events up to that point was basically MLG, had done all that.
Yeah.
They just left MLG. So there was this really awkward transition, as you can imagine, at that time. And the one company that you thought might run events in North America and do a solid job would be UMG. But then UMG's first event was such a cluster piece of, problems. Suddenly they were kind of pushed off to the side. So yeah, I just did that year. It was just interesting because people wanted events. It was like, who was going to run them? Because UMG didn't do a great job. MLG was sort of like ESL good luck type thing. That was just kind of,
well, and too at the time, like ESL that was their recipe for success. They were picking up so many titles because everybody was paying attention to online pro leagues. I mean, I just think about CS and how many matches they had. Obviously, people were like, we want more. And that's what ESL was doing, was like, we have a cheaper way to give you a ton of content and players get to play a ton of matches for a lot of money.
And they had a lot of experience with studio events and online leagues, but not with open tournaments with hundreds of teams. That's not ESL. Like, what ESL event has there been with hundreds of teams? Like, I know they've had some stuff with Halo and DreamHack. I think that DreamHack and ESL are owned by the same company, but it wasn't like their thing, really. That was that's an MLG thing. So yeah, that time was interesting.
I didn't even know about ESL until Black Ops 3, literally, because I came from the MLG only side and only played online tournaments. I had no idea what ESL was until that year came around, and I learned quickly how all that worked out. But yeah, it was very weird.
So yeah,
we started transition ever. We
started the CWL in this weird like transition time. We were all used to a certain style of events from MLG. We had to transition over. We kind of went back to that at the later stages of Black Ops 3. And then moving forward to the next games, I feel like we kind of got to a better spot as a community and with the format and everything. I know, Joe, you had a lot of input on like the actual structure itself, because that was legitimately your job for a while working with the MLG team. So I'm sure you have a good perspective on that. Like, how was that a difficult process to get a lot of those changes pushed through?
So I mean,
that face tells me yes.
Obviously, like, it's my first like big job, right? It's my first job.
Right.
Like, people ask me what my first job is. I played COD from 16 to 23. Like, I don't think I'm the big man on campus, but I think I have all the right ideas, or I know how all this works, right? But I learned very quickly, just sort of how things work, right? But obviously,
everyone thinks they get it. That's so funny. Everyone thinks they get it.
Of course,
Then you actually learn how things work. You're like, oh.
No, I mean, I had no idea, thinking back at it now. But I mean, Adam brought me in and was like, what's like the number one thing? And I was like, I think, when you look at like League of Legends and you look at all these developing games, like, we need a LAN league. That has to be number one. Like, there's too many problems the year before. The players hate it. The players hate online. The next step is the LAN league. And that's where the IW it wasn't the best format, but it was a step forward towards that. But the reason it wasn't like, the last couple of years is budget, right? Just all these different things. They've never done it before.
I think the hardest thing, really, well, I think in retrospect, we've learned all those years of an online league and want to do a LAN league. I think we've learned now that just no one really gave a shit about league matches, like, especially as the year goes on. And it's tough for them. You got to think internally when they were trying to justify millions more dollars for LAN versus online, when everyone knew the viewership was not going to change that much. Like, would it help the players a lot? Yes. Would there be a lot of positives for content with having the players there? 100%. But the fact is, viewership wasn't going to shift that much, because it's still just, for the average viewer, you're just watching a damn league match.
I completely agree with that too. I go back to, like, I don't know, the IW season, for example, and you'd have those matches at Pro League that just no one there really cared about it. You could tell the players had a lackluster feel to it. Some of the teams wouldn't really even show up to scrim or practice for them because they knew their sort of fate already. So it just turned into a big percentage of these matches that didn't really mean that much. And we all wanted for that extra LAN time. And did that really pay off for a lot of people? For some it did, for some it didn't. So I think there is definitely like room for improvement there. But
I think it helped the players a lot. Definitely, I'm sure players got better.
Well, yeah, they definitely got better. I'm just more talking about the lower half of the teams that they knew they were out. They knew what their fate was already. So it's just kind of like led to these lackluster situations.
That was another one of the problems, right? Is we were supposed to be this global league, and going back to Black Ops 3, right? You're just looking at like the APAC prize pool. You have a funny story about that one. But, yeah, I mean that's where that comes in, right? The 16, even this year, going down to 12 teams, it's like we know when you look at the talent on all the rosters, each team has talent. Like it finally feels like there's a few teams you can count out. I get it, but it wouldn't surprise me if this team beat that team any weekend. It really wouldn't, because there is talent just spread across the board.
It should be the most competitive we've ever had, just going from 16 to 12 teams. But Joe, with all of our learnings with the pro league and viewership and seeing how how much better tournaments did, were you surprised then that our format for the new league was all around league matches?
Yes.
That was shocking.
Okay, was I surprised? Obviously, franchising, what OWL was doing, I think we all thought first year's first, we were going to do what OWL did and be in an arena for a year or two. And
well, that's what you were frustrated about the most at first. I remember you.
I mean, it's just like when you're going to rebrand as much as possible. I think what OWL did was they rebranded. Well, they didn't have to rebrand. They branded all these teams and whatnot, and people fell in love through the localization, which I still think is a key, right? Like, Chris is in Atlanta. There has to be people that, they connect to Atlanta. And I think it did, like, right. You saw the watch parties in Dallas and New York, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's key, but the problem is to just go from nothing to not 100, because we're not at home and away matches, but to basically just league matches without much of a history behind a lot of it. It would have just been a scary jump.
You were expecting fans to make these potential trips to go watch a potential of 2 games for your respective team, 3 games. It's a tough sell. So
3 maps.
Yeah,
that's actually 3 maps.
I'm glad something there got sorted quickly.
Yeah. Well, when I first saw that happen, that was the most shocking thing I saw. I was like, there's just no way anyone's gonna want to watch like that. You're gonna travel to these home matches. You're gonna go and you're gonna play. Like the biggest complaint from a lot of players was like, you can potentially play like 3 maps. You do a lot of traveling. That's 30 minutes of COD. Like that's 30 minutes of on land COD play, and you're done. Like if you only had 1 match, that's like some of the way the scheduling was working.
Yeah, like some teams are going to Paris for a day.
Like you go for a day, play potentially, like if you played the best team in the league and you were the worst, then you're just done. You just go back.
Part of me, like there's part of me that really got it. Like from when you think about it from like a sales standpoint, like marketing standpoint, like it's great when especially for like a sales team, like when you know exactly how many matches each team is going to have, exactly how much screen time they're basically going to have. You're trying to sell stuff for. Like I get the benefits of it. Versus like a tournament structure. Like what's a little bit scary about a tournament structure? Like if you think about it, like there are going to be some teams like in the lower half that might just get double bopped. They're out. Like they just lose in groups and they're done every single like Friday or Saturday, whatever it is.
It could happen.
Yeah. So that's a little bit scary, I think, for some of the organizations. But if we've learned anything from the past decade of Call of Duty, people want to watch. They want to watch tournaments, and I think this is cool. It's sort of like, do any of you follow Formula One at all?
Not really.
I don't.
Okay. You told me to watch that doc. You
need to watch it, dude. It's so good.
Heard good things. Yeah.
It's similar in the sense it's like they travel to, it's like a traveling circus. You go to one city, all the drivers there, they race, they get points based on the finish. You pick up and go to another city the next week. You pick up and go to another city next week. You get so many points, and that's how you determine your winner. Like it's sort of like that in a way. Just we have 8 teams instead of 12 teams and stuff. But
right.
I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm just really impressed they made that change when they did. Joe and I don't know if all 4 of us talked about it, but Joe and I did not think that was possible.
We talked about it.
I was very
briefly,
surprised.
Not like in depth, like but I didn't think that change was even possible as well. So I thought we were stuck kind of with the format that was announced. And then,
I think we all thought it was going to be a year 1 to year 2 transition. Like I just thought like we were at the summit basically talking to each other about it. Like it was almost like some of the chatter was like, we are probably gonna make changes for year 2. Like that's just what the chatter was. And then I think I was out and I got a text or a call from someone and it was like, "Did you hear about these changes?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I don't believe you. I didn't believe that."
Yeah.
It was like a week before Christmas or something. I was like, I don't believe you. Our first event's 4 weeks out. I was like, I don't believe you.
I feel it's so funny too. I was very surprised too. Obviously, you guys have more information than I do at this given moment, but like we're so used to not very much changing in such a small amount of time for COD over the years, whether it be the game, the structures, the organizations, whatever it may be. And now, I feel like it's a really good sign. The fact that they were able to pivot so fast. There's all these changes going on. There's so much going into all this stuff. Obviously, a lot of money's flying around too. But the fact they were able to make a big change like that, it just gives me a lot of hope for the future, to where, I don't know, maybe in some way, shape, or form, this format doesn't go as well as we all think it will. I mean, they made the change very quickly, so maybe going on into the future years.
Step.
Yeah, right. That's awesome from my POV for how like stagnant this community seems to be sometimes.
I think it's good because yes, like players will bitch about this and that, and fans will bitch about this and that won't necessarily change the mind of like higher ups at a company, because they just don't even see that. Like they're so disconnected from that stuff sometimes. But when all of the owners are in your ear, that is something you hear. So that I think that's very cool. Just I think it shows that the owners like kind of have the power they do to influence stuff like this, which I'm assuming that's how it went down. I mean, I don't see how else it would have changed. Right. The owners must have tried to do stuff. So
I think too, like obviously we talked about like the changes throughout the years, and I think for a while with the CWL is, I mean, the players in the league relationship was so weak, right? There was such a love, just a hate relationship. And I think what the LAN League did is it really built those relationships up. Like people were pumped when Spencer was like, he went to the CDL, right? Like people are pumped when like Casey from the old MLG is at the CDL now, right? Like, these are people that
the players can
relationships
trust
with, right? Yeah, players can have these conversations with. And I think to them, like, they're trying to do their best. Like the league, like a lot of the problems players know now doesn't fall onto like league shoulders. Like a lot of the times, like especially game side, right? It's just what it is. It's as much as like the players want to go to the CWL and tell them to do this, like there's a whole process behind it, right? And I think it took the players a very long time to figure that out.
100%. Well, then it creates a situation, and we can sort of transition to this and how the players sort of vent their frustrations about the league, the game, things like that. There's an appropriate process to do those types of things. And if the trust isn't there, you see what players do, where they kind of throw a fit on social media until they hopefully get their way. It just, Crowder and I talked about this a little bit earlier. It's just like it gives such a bad perception of our community, about the league, about the game that we love and want to support and help thrive. So it's like, hopefully we can continue to create those situations. Because like, Joe, you're completely right. Compared to like, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, that trust, that relationship between player and like, I don't know, MLG, for example, at the time, it wasn't good at all. So if we can keep,
it wasn't even there.
If we can keep making those steps to create a better relationship and better lines of communication between the players, the league, and the developers, that's what's going to create just such a better vibe with our community. 100%.
I'm going to find myself saying this a lot, but I almost view this as a transition year, sort of like when we went to ESL, in the sense that there are going to be bumps in the road. There are a lot of new employees. Right. There are a lot of new decision makers. Like there are going to be a lot of bumps in the road. I think that player relationship and working with the dev side, there is going to be bumpy, at least for this year. But yeah, I can't speak to everything, but you know, when we had that meeting in LA a couple weeks back, I think Joe and I felt really good coming out of it, in the sense of it might not happen this year, but like there is going to be, I think, a lot more focus on the dev side when it comes to esports. And that's why I'm so torn on the players complaining, because do I think they can be whiny little bitches?
Yes.
But
100%.
But a lot of it is justified in the sense that I don't personally think IW's doing a very good job when it comes to the relations there. So I think there's improvements that need to happen on both sides. And I know I'm one that always tries to be positive and stuff, but I know that stuff is going to improve. I just don't know how much good it's going to improve maybe year one, but with time, there's just too much money involved now. Like it's going to matter to people.
I just think that relationship is so important. The players are only going to continue doing what they're doing because they're not getting like a good line of communication. They're either some of the changes that they bring up, they feel like their time isn't being worth it when they actually use the appropriate lines of communication. So their next step is to cause a craze on social media, and it's very easy for them to do. They're very influential people. So like the biggest thing, like I guess I have a unique perspective because I went from player. I actually worked with IW for a little bit, and I feel like there's things that they do well and other things that they just don't seem to give enough attention to. So yeah, Clint, I think you're right. I think as we move forward, there just has to be more attention on that.
There's just, it's always been, you know, this is something I've wanted, and I don't know if it's built yet or they're working on it, but like it's something that Joe and I've talked about a lot of years back. Like when the CWL first started, like I was a big preacher of, the issue is the restart every year, not necessarily from a new game coming out, but the fact that we're working with a whole new group of people every year. Like you're working with a whole new dev every year. It's like I would have conversations with Vonderhaar 3 years ago, and then it felt like 3 years later we have to start all over, where it's not like just a continuation, because there needs to be like an internal team that's sort of just going dev to dev. Like an internal team is just focused on esports, not just, oh, esports disappears from us for 3 years and it's back 3 years later when we release our title. So I think that's finally something that's being worked on. It has to be now with this league.
Sure as hell hope so.
That's gonna take time to get it figured out, but it's just there shouldn't be that refresh as much. Like there should be a continuation each year, which I feel pretty confident that'll be a thing.
And I think on the player side of things, that's why you see them get so frustrated sometimes, is because like you'll play a certain game and you'll have a problem with footsteps or something. Just like one of their complaints of what you see, and then it not having that refresh every year. It's like, why are we arguing the same thing that we argued?
Exactly. Because some of the devs, they don't even remember. Like it's been 3 years. They've been focused on creating a new game. Like esports is the last thing they're thinking.
Some of the people might not even work there anymore either. Like it's the craziest thing. The turnover rate, I'm sure, is crazy on that too.
So that's why the frustration comes. And sometimes you feel like you're just complaining about the same thing.
Another thing that is such a hurdle to like who would be the designated people to go and do that? The players are so biased. They'll stomp their feet to try and make their points for whatever they think is going to work best for them or their team. And people might deny that, but you're involved with it. You're legitimately going to play at one of these huge tournaments in these next couple of months throughout the year. Like whether you want to be biased or not, you are. So like it comes to, I don't know, is it people like us? Is it other people that have enough knowledge to make those, hopefully best calls for esports when you're working with the devs? Like that's a tough situation to be in.
I gotta go ex pros there.
You have to, right?
Yeah, there'll be a step. Like it just has to be. I think too. Like I was talking to Clint, I think, about it the other day. Like 343 has like a pro team.
Yeah.
They had a pro team before.
I think that's the future.
I think. And again, it's not to make the decisions. I think it's to work with the devs and figure out a middle ground, which is what it'll be. I think that has to be a part of the plan. It just does. Like some of the conversations, the knowledge that pro players, heck, even like us, sometimes the stuff we talk about, like these people have zero, just no idea. It's just not even in their mindset what they're thinking about. I mean, I'll never forget. Like it was before IW came out, and it was like, during AW and Black Ops 3, there was like ball spots where you throw the ball up and it would delay 15 seconds. Like they were working on uplink and they were trying to find all these spots. And I remember we were working with some of the devs and they're like, yeah, we've been working on like trying to really cut down on these spots. And we're like, that's awesome. Great. And I remember Revan was just sitting next to me and he was just like, I found one. And then the guy writes it down. He goes, I found another one. I writes it down.
It was so funny.
Another one. And I remember it. He's just sitting there like, all right, maybe we're just not doing a good job. Like that. The problem is just like, they don't know what to look for. They don't know how to look for it. They don't know how to mimic it. The movement, the slide cancel right now in IW. You think one person, maybe one on the QA team at IW can do that?
Yeah, probably not. No way.
Not. They can't. Like they just can't do it. So that is definitely going to be a tool for the future.
Is that QA? Is that on the dev side? It's who knows?
Well, see, I'm more hoping, at least that I'm hoping we more have like I don't know what'll be included in this sandbox, but more like some stuff for the CDL that's sort of set and just carries over year to year. So then all we're really talking about is like maps and guns. Like as far as a lot of that,
that's the dream.
I don't know what awful. Yes, I think that is the
dream. There needs to be
a
template. I agree with you.
So these conversations aren't happening every year. Like I'm hoping eventually there's like a template sort of carries over year to year. So at least that generic bullshit about stuff like that we shouldn't have to talk about constantly goes away. Which
and it needs to be, it needs to be whoever like is creating that template. It needs to be someone that has a good relationship with the pros that are going to have that trust, or else it's just going to be this revolving thing of the pros throwing a fit every single year, every single game, every single time something doesn't go their way, they're going to freak out. So hopefully we can take steps in the right direction to remedy that.
And I actually think,
because I hate seeing the pros bitch. It drives me nuts.
I know. It just makes me, dude. It's bad when like I see so much complaint from players like I don't even want to play the game. Like when I'll see so much complaint, I'm like, it just puts this like sour taste in your mouth where like I don't even care to play it. But hopefully it'll get better. But I think this year it obviously started slow and there haven't been many updates for our stuff, but I think it'll come. It's just it's tough. I'm so split on that too, because like you understand why it is the way it is right now, in the sense of you saw the stats coming out that this is like the most played Call of Duty this generation. You know how many people are buying this game, playing this game. You know how big Gunfight is, how big Ground War is. Of course, the stuff they're focusing on right now is those. Like that's
of course
99.9% of the people playing the game. Like you think they're worried about custom servers? How many people are playing goddamn customs right now? Like 100 people? Like I get why it's the way it is. I'm not saying it's okay, but I get why it is the way it is. And I think they'll start to shift focus to our stuff soon. Is my
because with how big this league is though, like I understand that side of things, but that mindset has to be eliminated. Like not completely, of course, because Call of Duty obviously has its casual players and stuff, but this league is huge. There's a lot of money into it. You have
but it's too late now. Like this is something they need to start. Like I'm assuming I would bet my salary that I don't have yet because I haven't signed a contract. that talks with the CDL team have already started with Trevor. I would guarantee there is already conversations like this happening. Whereas with IW and the announcement of this, they started too late. You know they started too late.
Well, I mean, think about where we're at with their development cycle, right? 3 years ago. I mean, what franchise got announced a year ago? They're already 2 years into their game. Like they have their template, which we are talking about. They have things. They have their roadmap, which they're working on. The beta, like they have all this stuff. Yeah. So year one, we knew was. I didn't think we're gonna think it was gonna be this tough. But I think we knew it was gonna be tough.
I mean, it just go ahead, Crowder.
No, well, I mean, I feel people forget though too. Like even when the first CWL like started, it started very slow. Not a lot of LAN events. We were playing an online league. Like obviously we had years of experience with the CWL, but this is still the CDL's first year too. Like it's still, this is like you have to kind of get the CWL mindset out of your head sometimes. Use the good stuff from that and bring this into the CDL. But this is also year one of the CDL. This is a brand new team, workers, developers. Like obviously I was a player and I have complained myself before, but they're like, it's annoying kind of like going through the same motions all the time and all those complaints. But this is a brand new league. Like there is going to be a template that Maven was talking about that I completely agree that should be followed. And I think we'll get there, but this is obviously kind of the stepping stone year for that.
And I think like as much as we're focusing sort of on the negative with that, like there will be a lot of positives this year with regards to like people don't understand how much money can fix things. Like all the asks and wants we've had with like broadcaster mode and a lot of stuff you're going to see at events with like regards to graphics package and stats and data and stuff we're going to have. Like there are some things that are going to improve so much it's actually insane. And Joe and I can just speak to it just from like we would get handwritten stats sometimes from people. Like the stats we're going to have, I'm going to have a freaking iPad with my name on it. That's going to have every single thing I could ever want.
Yeah, I'm going to be spewing some stuff off. Someone's like, how do you know that? I'm like, hey.
The broadcaster mode stuff we've heard they're working on is just stuff we never thought was, well, maybe stuff we thought was possible, but knew we were never going to get, or things that are finally happening. So there's going to be a ton of just movement in places there never was because there simply wasn't enough money or enough power at the top.
That was exactly what I was going to say. We know what kind of worked in CWL. We know what didn't work in CWL. However, this is sort of a fresh start. We know the side of like relationship that the players want, and to play devil's advocate, like I know the players have been waiting so long to have that sort of template or that team or that connection with the devs to actually make impactful decisions on the game itself, on the competitive side. On the other side, it's like, well, we've heard rumors about some of these player contracts, like
cash. Wow.
You know, I realize everything might not be in a great spot for them right now, but goddamn, they're probably in a pretty damn good spot compared to like a year or two ago. And you're exactly right. There's a lot more invested into this. This is not going to be like a 1 or 2 year plan, you would guess, right? With all this going in.
No. that's another
right.
point.
So it's like
people are acting like this. It's like they gotta blow their load this year, and that's everything. Like what?
Right.
No, they're planning for like decades. Like this is you didn't buy into this league unless you thought this was going to be the next NFL, the next NBA. Like they're thinking, especially when you think of the people like the millionaires, billionaires buying into this thing. Like you're on the long haul. That's why you got in. So.
That's where my faith is. Like this is different. This is a different tier of people being involved. The different features that we're gonna have.
You've never seen this
exactly. This is
ever not even close to this.
Hopefully going to be the real deal.
Did you guys see the top 10 selling games in North America?
Yeah,
COD's
doing pretty. Yeah, COD's doing okay. They're hitting the metrics. I think stockholders are happy. I think
7 of the top.
I hope so.
I don't think it's going anywhere. We'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because like the players they just have a ton of passion. They want the league to be as successful as possible. They want to play.
They've been waiting a long time. Like a lot of these guys were there from when we started too. I totally get their side. Like,
I mean, what everybody talks about, right? It was the best competitive game of all time, right? Black Ops 2. I mean, it's been 7 years.
It's a long time.
We're still talking about it. And each game has had the elements, and we just haven't been able to put it all together. And I think I get it. It'll I don't know. I hope it's going to happen. That's my optimism. I don't know when it's going to happen. Hopefully sooner than later. But at the end of the day, their bank accounts are growing, right? They are getting paid a lot of money to play Call of Duty. And it's just sometimes I think you have to take a deep breath and remember that. Like, I am waking up next to some of my best friends, some people in some really cool cities, and playing Call of Duty. Like, and I know it's so hard to just bring that in because slide canceling is so annoying, or this or that, or no dead silence. But like, it's just like chill for a minute, right? Like,
well, some teams have been able to enjoy themselves and do that, and it seems almost like those are the teams that have been doing well in scrims.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing with the contracts and obviously getting paid, which is very true, and that was me and my team specifically had a very long talk about like how we're going to kind of approach practice no matter what comes at us this game before the game came out. But it's also the process, I feel, of like human nature. Like no matter how well you're doing, you're always going to want more. You're always going to want perfection in what you're doing. So it's like I see that argument, and yes, this is even in my position, like you are in a very, very good position in life of doing what you love with people that are surrounded that do the same thing, and you want to. Yeah, exactly. We have a great time every morning. But like you're still gonna want more. You're still gonna want to grow your esport or your specific craft, no matter what it is. So it's like there is a fine line there of take a deep breath. Like
of course,
things aren't that bad. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen some stupid fucking comments of like some people just like talking about like retirement and stuff over this year, like just dumb comments like that. That's where it's like over the line. Like you're okay, you're in a good spot, like your job is like you're not living a terrible life, but at the same time, like there is the other side where you do want.
No, I get it.
You do want to stop arguing about football,
and
you do want to start arguing about stuff like these kind of things. So.
This is coming from like the coaching perspective and everything too. Like going into a year like this, like things you would think are going to keep getting bigger and better for the players, and it gets to a point where it's like I understand there's a lot of things that are frustrating, but don't let that anger, that frustration with the current situation of where the game is at impact yourself's like skill, your play, your mindset about practice, getting on every single day. There's been so many times where I see players just get in a foul mood and a bad routine, and it's going to affect yourself, the team, and the way you play. Now is the most important time to get ahead of the competition and make an impact for CDL to set yourself up. And if you're going to sit there and complain about a feature about the game or the maps or this or that, like know what you can change in the moment and like take a good step forward to get yourself in the best spot. That's my advice if any players watch this. But
I haven't drank alcohol in almost 18 months, but after watching a Chicago Huntsman scrim, I think I might have to. It is
Jesus.
Like, dude, just the God, that's an example of just sometimes I feel like the complaining just makes you play worse, man. It is.
You get in a negative mindset, but
congrats to you, Clint, on not drinking for 18 months.
But no, it's just it's not.
But as a player and a coach, that's the biggest issue in scrims, no matter what. Even with my team last year, when we were at the top, like you get on, you can tell in the it's a tone of voice, attitude,
Yep.
mindset is a whole different world of how your team practices or not. And all it takes is one person to then spread that like negativity to the other teammates. And like obviously people say like that's just being soft. It's really not. It's like bringing that energy of like actually wanting to get better. Sometimes you can be a little bit harsh with it is what you need to do. But yeah, if you just get on and you immediately before you get slide canceled for that first time or already complaining about it, it's in your head. Like it's just it's not advantageous. It's
But
gonna make you,
I mean, you guys would both know better than me. But like, I mean, scrims at the arena, like on LAN, like the LAN setting, like how was practice better? Like, mindset wise, like what was it? Like, did
I mean,
people complain less? I mean,
we had very different teams, but go ahead, Crowder.
I mean, what do you complain about that time? Like, I
mean,
bullet reg, bad PlayStation. Like, I don't know.
See, that's my thing. My favorite thing as even when I was a player, and I was very self-aware of when I was playing bad. Like I would never kind of make excuses for myself.
Yeah.
But I love being able to coach a team in a LAN environment because you go home a lot, and we kind of had this talk where you have your teams that lose a map, and they're like, "Oh, this is on LAN or online," like, and they make like the excuse when the host is right next to them in their city, and then they are probably pinging 30. You know what I'm saying? But it's really just there's no excuse, right? So that you can't complain. And if you start talking about PlayStations and stuff, you just suck. Like like it's more or less like so it comes down to you get better practice in that sense if you make it actually worth it. Like my team got really good practice last year, in my opinion, because when we lost, there was no one saying any other excuse other than like, all right, how do we actually lose that? Let's figure it out. But but every player and every person is a little bit different. Personally, I think that's the best way.
You said it right. I think it's accountability. It's accountability. When you're practicing, when you're in person, if I'm watching a certain person's POV, if they have a bad map, you know, they can't just, you know, online, they can walk away from their setup. They can just literally mute out on Discord or TeamSpeak or whatever it may be. And in person, I'm in their face and there's a problem that needs to be solved and they can't just like run away from the problem in a sense. So I'm not saying that people did that, but when you're in that LAN environment, like the amount of excuses possible go down dramatically and you either figure out how to get better consistently or you lose.
Simple I also think like too, like, being in person helps you like in that environment helps you not get distracted, right? If you're at home, wherever I don't know, like everyone's living state is a little bit different, but you have your girlfriend or you have your parents or you have like dogs, anything, what it is. Yeah. You have other responsibilities, other people to talk to, other things to do. And after you have a bad set of series, like a series of scrims, you might not want to sit there and talk to your coach or another player and be like, all right, why am I doing so bad? I actually, Enable on my team last year he went through that little rut in the beginning or the middle of the year, and he sat down with me online and on LAN and talked about like why like he's kind of doing bad. And as you guys saw like through stats and stuff, he played great at the end of the year. Yeah. You know, so I think that environment too of being surrounded by those people that are focused on the same goal as you is a really important thing too. And I think that kind of goes away when you're by yourself because it's just what do you do? You know, like there's so many other distractions and even not even distractions sometimes, like actual real life problems. Like people. Yeah, you want to say this is your job, and it is, but sometimes you have like family matters and stuff like that. Right. So it's like being in that like scenario, being surrounded by people that have the same goal as you is, I think, goes a really long way in like everything in life, and I think that's why that helps a lot more too.